Each autumn, we ignite expansive piles of branches, materials that could enrich the earth for decades, eradicating both natural hydration and fertility in a single afternoon. Yet, in the Alps, one nonconformist farmer opted to inter wood instead of incinerating it, cultivating lemons amidst the snow. This elevated earth became a productive force for 2 decades. Without hoses, without fertilizer, without exertion. So why did we discard the insight that could alleviate drought in your own garden? The explanation challenges every conventional belief in modern agriculture. Sepp Holzer never intended to be a dissenter. He simply observed the mountains and heeded the soil. In the 1980s in Austria, this quiet defiance transformed his farm into a battleground. Inspectors arrived with clipboards and admonitions, scrutinizing his steep terraces and the deep ponds he had excavated without authorization. Each mound of soil, each heap of buried wood incurred another penalty. Holzer's neighbors adhered to the regulations. Flat fields, linear rows, government-sanctioned crops. He constructed hills from decomposing logs and planted citrus where only spruce had previously grown. Officials deemed it irresponsible. They expressed concerns about floods, erosion, and the unpredictability of uncultivated land. They issued violation notices, sometimes dozens within a single year. By the close of the decade, Holzer was recognized as the most penalized farmer. "Ich bin der Meistjauer," he stated with a wry grin. "I am the most highly penalized farmer." The fines accumulated, thousands of shillings, then euros, each one an imperative to revert to conventional methods. But Holzer continued building, even as he confronted the threat of losing his property. In 1986, following substantial rainfall, authorities accused him of creating illicit water retention mounds. He remitted the fine, then appealed, asserting that his ponds and terraces averted the very calamities they apprehended. In 1989, the pressure reached its zenith. The Agricultural Board threatened to confiscate his music farm. Holzer's rejoinder was straightforward. He invited them to witness his yields. Lemons, kiwis, grapes, and root vegetables flourished on inclines where only grass had grown before. His farm yielded 10 times more produce than any adjacent property. By 1992, after another fine for expanding a pond, Holzer's techniques had begun to articulate for themselves. He penned, "My yields silenced them." The government could not disregard the evidence. Citrus trees laden with fruit, vegetables thriving without a drop of irrigation or a sack of chemical fertilizer. Holzer's perseverance transmuted every penalty into corroboration. He observed the regulations crumble, but his soil only grew more fertile. The fines never deterred him. They only solidified his conviction. Nature, when permitted to exercise its inherent wisdom, can outlast any bureaucracy. His narrative is not merely one of resistance, but of faith in decaying wood, in the deliberate pace of decomposition, and in the understated efficacy of a hillside garden that steadfastly endures. Lemons sway in the alpine breeze, their vibrant skins contrasting against a snowy backdrop. On the steep terraces of Krameterhof, kiwi vines intertwine with spruce trees, their fuzzy fruits ripening under brisk mountain skies. Grapes mature on the same slopes where neighbors struggle to cultivate grass from the earth. No hoses meander through these garden beds. No sprinklers tick during the night. Water emanates from within the earth itself, drawn upwards through roots that penetrate deeply into mounds of buried wood. The soil here is dark and friable, imbued with the sweet aroma of decay. Frost appears on the fields in early October, yet the ground beneath Holzer's citrus trees retains its warmth. Even in the depths of winter, verdant shoots emerge through the mulch, nourished by the gradual warmth of decomposing logs beneath. The citrus trees are neither stunted nor unhealthy. They stand, heavily laden with fruit, their leaves lustrous and robust. Kiwis, typically cultivated in subtropical valleys, prosper here alongside alpine pines. The harvest baskets brim with colors that appear impossible at this elevation. Lemons, grapes, even figs. Neighbors arrive to observe. Inspectors, once armed with citation books, now carry cameras. The evidence is undeniable. Where others perceive barren slopes, Holzer cultivates abundance. This is not a deceptive effect of greenhouse glass or concealed irrigation pipes. The secret lies buried beneath the surface. Each mound is densely packed with fallen logs, branches, and leaves, layered like a forest floor, then capped with earth. As the wood decomposes, it absorbs rain and snowmelt, retaining water like a sponge. Roots access this hidden reservoir during dry months. Even in drought years, the beds remain moist. Crops endure heat waves and late frosts that scorch adjacent fields. The mounds offer more than water retention. As the logs break down, they release a steady stream of nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium, enriching the soil for decades. The warmth generated by decomposition persists through the coldest nights, extending the growing season weeks beyond what the valley floor permits. Each mound develops its own microclimate, a pocket of Mediterranean abundance nestled in the heart of the Alps. Visitors traverse the terraces in disbelief. They taste lemons that never saw a music greenhouse. They touch soil that never dries out, even in July. For 2 decades, these beds have consistently yielded harvests without fertilizer, without irrigation, without the chemical dependencies of modern farming. The proof is not theoretical, but manifest in the fruit, sweet, fragrant, and inexplicable by any rule other than nature's own. At the core of every hügelkultur mound lies a simple, often overlooked marvel. Decomposing wood acts as a sponge, not a metaphorical sponge, but a physical one, architected by nature itself. The cell walls of wood, primarily composed of lignin, form a complex network of minute pores and channels. As wood begins to decay, these pathways expand. Rainwater and snowmelt permeate, saturating every chamber. In laboratory investigations, profoundly decomposed pine logs have absorbed water equivalent to 5 times their dry weight, exceeding 500%. Oak, which decomposes more slowly, still doubles or triples its mass with absorbed moisture. This is not theoretical. It is a principle of physics. On the surface, a hügelkultur bed resembles any other raised mound: soil, mulch, perhaps a tangle of squash vines. However, if you insert a moisture probe deep into the mound, the readings reveal a different story. In the arid heat of July, when neighboring gardens wilt and hoses run incessantly, the probe inserted into the hügel bed detects moisture levels comparable to a spring rainfall. Field measurements indicate 40 to 60% soil moisture within the mound. Even as the topsoil above cracks in the sun, the buried logs beneath, swollen with water, gradually release it to the roots overhead. It constitutes a hidden reservoir, replenished with every passing storm. The secret to this water-holding capacity lies in the mechanism by which wood breaks down. As fungi and microbes consume the cell walls, the wood's density diminishes. A piece of pine, initially dense enough to sink in water, becomes light and aerated, resembling a natural sponge. In one study, degraded pine's density decreased to merely 0.18 grams per cubic centimeter, less than half its initial weight. Every gram of that decayed wood can trap several grams of water. Even after months without rain, roots find moisture where only dust is visible. For gardeners, this translates to liberation from the daily chore of dragging hoses across the yard. It signifies a summer devoid of withered leaves or crop failures. This promise is not mere fantasy. It is underpinned by the inherent structure of the mound itself. Every log, every branch, every handful of decomposing leaves contributes another layer of storage. As years pass, the mound settles. but its core remains a dynamic reservoir. Accounts from practitioners mirror this quiet revolution. In the second year after constructing a hügelkultur bed, a gardener in the Pacific Northwest put away her hose, reporting that the soil remained moist throughout the entire season. In Austria, Holzer's own terraces retained water during droughts that depleted neighbors' wells. Urban gardeners, utilizing only city brush and curbside logs, observed their beds flourish through heat waves without any supplemental irrigation. This is the promise that appeals to both the unmotivated gardener and the financially prudent cultivator. Perform the work once, and the mound self-waters for decades. The buried wood does not merely nourish the soil, it quenches its thirst, subtly from below. The evidence is in the measurements, the probe readings, and the hands that emerge damp after digging into a mound that has not received rain for weeks. It is not magic. It is the physics of lignin and decay working in service of the soil. Beneath the surface of every hügelkultur mound, a subtle engine operates continuously. As soon as the initial layer of soil covers the wood, the mound transcends being merely a reservoir. It transforms into a heater. Microbes and fungi proliferate through the moist, decomposing logs, breaking down lignin and cellulose. Their activity is not only invisible, it is exothermic. Each instance of wood decomposition releases a burst of heat, warming the soil from the inside out. Even during the biting cold of an alpine winter, the ground above a buried log can register several degrees warmer than the air, and noticeably warmer than the flat fields surrounding it. This is not merely a comfort for roots, it represents a survival advantage. Seeds germinate earlier in spring. Frost that would kill young shoots on bare ground passes harmlessly over these mounds, cushioned by the slow, steady warmth emanating from below. In autumn, the growing season extends, with tomatoes and squash ripening weeks after neighboring gardens have withered. The heat is only the initial benefit. As the years unfold, the buried wood metamorphoses from a simple energy source into a trust fund for the soil. The breakdown of logs is an endurance event, not a rapid process. Hardwoods like oak and maple require 2 decades to fully decompose. Throughout this period, the wood gradually releases essential nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium, at a rate perfectly aligned with the growth needs of overlying plants. This process avoids erratic cycles of abundance and depletion, ensuring no sudden bursts of fertility followed by rapid declines. Instead, the soil receives a consistent, slow infusion of sustenance. Each spring, new root systems delve deeper, locating fresh pockets of nourishment. Every autumn, the mound settles further, its core becoming richer than the year before. Field experiments and long-term garden observations corroborate what historical agriculturalists noted in their terraced fields. A properly constructed hügelkultur bed can sustain crops for 2 decades or more without additional fertilizer. The nutrients remain sequestered within the wood, safe from being washed away by rain or degraded by sun exposure, released only as microorganisms meticulously complete their work. Even after 10 years, soil samples from the heart of a mound can exhibit higher concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus compared to the surrounding earth. This system represents not a quick remedy, but an enduring legacy. The scientific principles underpinning this gradual release mechanism are both elegant and highly efficient. As wood decomposes, it forms a structural matrix that supports microbial life. Fungi intricately thread through the wood fibers, creating expansive networks that transport minerals from the mound's depths to the surface roots. Bacteria meticulously break down complex organic compounds into simpler nutrients. Earthworms burrow through the softening wood, integrating it with the soil and depositing nutrient-rich castings beneficial for plant growth. Each participant in this subterranean ecosystem operates at its own pace, yet collectively, they transform decaying wood into vibrant fertility. For gardeners, this translates into reduced annual labor and increased yields with each passing season. There's no need to transport heavy bags of fertilizer or fret over soil depletion. The mound independently manages both feeding and thermal regulation, quietly and effectively. It's a system founded on patience and trust. Trust in the gradual, transformative power of decay, and in the wisdom of allowing nature's processes to unfold over many years. In an age preoccupied with instant gratification, hügelkultur offers something unique, an assurance that with the appropriate foundation, your soil will only improve with time. Flat fields became the prevailing standard as machinery made its way onto agricultural lands. In the decades following 1920, tractors and harvesters necessitated a uniform terrain, devoid of bumps, mounds, or any features that could impede a steel wheel or jam a plow. The traditional practice of creating raised beds from buried wood consequently fell out of favor, not due to its ineffectiveness, but because it didn't align with the principles of mechanization. A tractor could efficiently cover a flat acre in minutes, planting endless rows without interruption. Efficiency evolved into a quantitative metric. More land covered, fewer obstructions, higher hourly yields. Fields were leveled, brush was incinerated, and landscapes were re-engineered to suit the demands of machines rather than the needs of root systems. The allure of speed and large-scale production superseded the slow, deliberate fertility provided by buried wood. As these mounds disappeared, so too did their hidden reserves of water and nutrients, leaving behind a barren canvas, convenient for machines, but demanding extensive fertilization and irrigation. Begin by digging a trench directly atop the grass. The core material remains consistent. Gather the largest, oldest, most decayed logs available. Oak and maple are ideal because these hardwoods break down slowly, nourishing the soil for years. Absolutely avoid cedar, walnut, or any treated wood, as these substances can harm roots and inhibit the mound's development. Arrange the logs tightly, filling any crevices with smaller branches and twigs. This should not be a loose pile. Every air pocket creates a potential future void. Next, thoroughly pack every interstice with nitrogen-rich green matter. Decaying wood requires substantial nitrogen, so incorporate grass clippings, fresh manure, or even urine. Neglecting this step risks microbes drawing nitrogen from your plants, a nitrogen trap that results in yellowing leaves, stunted growth, and disappointment. Once the green layer is substantial, cap the mound with a foot of topsoil and mulch. Water it generously during the initial year. Afterward, the mound will largely sustain itself. A retired elementary school teacher stands beside her garden, the hose neatly coiled and unused since the second spring. She constructed her first mound using storm-felled maple logs, meticulously filling every gap with grass clippings and manure. Now, even in August, her soil remains cool and moist. She often quips that her tomatoes receive more water from the earth than she provides from the tap. Her water bill plummeted so dramatically that the city inquired whether her meter was malfunctioning. A thrifty homeowner in the suburbs repurposed last year's brush pile into a winding, serpentine bed throughout his backyard. He diligently tracked every expense. No more bags of fertilizer, no more weekly irrigation, just kitchen scraps and autumn leaves integrated into the mound. By the end of the first year, his harvest was the most abundant he had ever achieved, and the savings more than covered the cost of his seeds twice over. Not all journeys begin with immediate success. One permaculture enthusiast observed her seedlings yellowing and stagnating. She had omitted the manure, relying solely on the wood. The lesson was swift. Decaying wood initially consumes nitrogen. She intervened by digging in fresh clippings and a wheelbarrow of compost, and within weeks the beds surged with life. Her initial misstep became her most compelling evidence. The mound, once resistant, now nourishes peas and squash without any signs of deficiency. Each testimonial echoes the same sentiment. Bury the wood, and the earth will reward you for years. Today, as droughts intensify and fertilizer costs escalate, millions continue to burn valuable organic matter that could become subterranean reservoirs beneath their gardens. With climate extremes threatening global food security, every buried branch represents a quiet act of resilience. This choice isn't about nostalgia, it's about cultivating soil that will endure beyond our lifetimes. The ground remembers what we invest in it. What legacy will your garden impart? Share your thoughts below.